She thought love would save her, but instead, it led her straight into the arms of death. An 18-year-old girl who longed for acceptance found herself trapped in a fatal first date with a man twice her age, a man who couldn't handle the truth she had hidden. What unfolded was not a love story, but a tragedy that shook everyone who ever knew them. Love is meant to be patient, kind, and unthinkable, but can be a horror when deception enters the picture. It can twist emotions into something far darker. In this story, we explore the fragile balance between truth and lies, trust and betrayal, and how a single secret pushed one man beyond the edge. Was it her fault for hiding who she was, or his fault for choosing violence over understanding? This is not just a story about a crime, but about what happens when illusions shatter, and reality takes a fatal turn. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay with us until the very end. This story is intense, filled with shocking turns and heartbreaking revelations, and you won't want to miss the powerful conclusion that will leave you questioning where love ends and obsession begins. Marcus Holloway was 47 years old, and loneliness had become his closest companion. His home, a modest two-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, was quiet, not the comforting kind of quiet, but the heavy, suffocating silence that follows someone who has no one to share their space with. The walls carried the faint echoes of a family that once lived there, laughter from his daughter when she was younger, arguments that grew louder with time, and finally, the sound of a slammed door the night his wife walked out. For Marcus, life had become a routine of work, eat, drink, sleep, repeat. Construction work paid the bills, but the job was hard on his body. He'd come home every evening with aching shoulders, grease-stained hands, and a bitterness he tried to drown with cheap whiskey. He told himself he didn't need anyone, that women were ungrateful, that his wife was a fool for leaving, but deep inside, the loneliness gnawed at him like a parasite. That's when he discovered the world of online dating. At first, Marcus was skeptical. He wasn't tech-savvy, and scrolling through endless profiles of women felt more like browsing a catalog than searching for love. But with every lonely night that passed, the temptation grew. Soon, the glowing screen of his phone became his only source of connection, his only reminder that there were still women out there who might want him. And then, there was Emily. Emily Carter was 18, though Marcus didn't know her real age yet. On her profile, she had written that she was 22, studying part-time and working as a barista. Her picture showed a girl with radiant auburn hair that fell past her shoulders and a smile that seemed too bright for someone her age. In those photos, nothing about her gave away the truth she was hiding. The angles were careful, the poses deliberate, all to mask what she feared would drive people away. Emily was a dwarf. At just under 4 feet tall, she had lived her entire life battling stares, cruel whispers, and rejection. To the world, she was different. To herself, she was tired of being defined by her height. She wanted someone to see beyond it. And Marcus, at least online, did. When Marcus first saw her profile, he felt a jolt of excitement he hadn't felt in years. She looked young, vibrant, exactly the kind of woman he fantasized about, a fresh start, someone who could fill the void his divorce had carved out of him. He messaged her, not expecting a reply. But Emily replied within minutes. That was the beginning. Their conversations flowed easily at first. Marcus complimented her on her hair, her smile, her mature look for someone so young. Emily blushed behind her screen, flattered by the attention. For her, this was validation, a reminder that someone older, more experienced, could find her attractive. For him, it was power. Each reply she sent fed into his ego, and soon, he found himself addicted to the connection. Marcus began to open up to Emily about his life, though he twisted the truth to make himself sound more appealing. He told her he was financially stable, glossing over the debts piling up from his divorce. He claimed he had good friends, when in reality, he spent most weekends alone with a bottle. Emily didn't question it, why would she? She was too busy hiding her own truth. To Marcus, Emily became more than just a girl online. She became a fantasy. Every night, he imagined her waiting for him, laughing at his jokes, wanting him. When work grew exhausting, the thought of her smile pushed him forward. When loneliness clawed at him, her late-night texts soothed the ache. He was no longer just Marcus the construction worker, he was Marcus, the man a beautiful young woman wanted. But with every passing week, Marcus's affection turned into something darker. He began demanding her time. If she didn't reply quickly enough, he'd send angry messages. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Don't you care about me?" Emily, still young and craving love, mistook his possessiveness for passion. She told herself he cared so much because he truly wanted her. And because she feared losing him, she never confessed the truth, that she wasn't 22, that she wasn't normal, by his standards, that her carefully angled photos were hiding her small frame. Instead, she leaned into the fantasy, weaving a version of herself that matched his expectations. In her mind, she thought, if he meets me, if he hears my voice, if he feels the real me, maybe he'll love me anyway. Marcus, meanwhile, began planning their first meeting with meticulous detail. He suggested restaurants, pressed her about hotels, and hinted at intimacy. Emily agreed nervously, reassuring herself that it would be fine. This was her chance, she thought, to finally be seen for more than her condition. But deep inside, a storm was already brewing. Marcus wasn't looking for truth. He wasn't looking for acceptance. He was looking for control, for perfection, for a young woman who would fill the emptiness in his life without complication. And Emily's secret, though she didn't yet know it, would be the spark that turned his fantasy into a nightmare. That night, as Marcus lay in his bed scrolling through Emily's messages, he told himself he had finally found her, the one who would heal his loneliness. Emily, on the other hand, fell asleep clutching her phone, whispering to herself that maybe, just maybe, love was finally within her reach. Neither of them realized that the lies between them weren't building a bridge. They were laying the foundation for tragedy. The weeks after Marcus and Emily first connected online blurred into a haze of late-night conversations, glowing phone screens, and whispered promises. For Marcus, every beep of a notification was a spark of excitement in a life that had grown stale. For Emily, each message was a lifeline, a thread tying her to the possibility that she could finally be wanted, truly wanted, despite the truth she was hiding. At 47, Marcus Holloway had never thought of himself as a man who would fall for someone so young. But the line between should and want blurred quickly. To him, Emily wasn't just a girl, she was energy, beauty, the kind of freshness that fed his pride. He convinced himself it wasn't wrong. After all, she told him she was 22. Old enough, he thought. Legal, mature, but still youthful enough to stroke his ego. And Emily, she never corrected him. Their conversations began innocently. Emily would ask about his day, his work, his favorite foods. Marcus, in turn, would ask about her classes, about what it was like working as a barista, about her friends. She didn't have the college stories he wanted to hear, so she invented them, weaving fiction from the scraps of movies and books. Classes were rough today, she'd text with a laughing emoji. I had this one professor who just wouldn't stop talking. Marcus would chuckle, imagining her sitting in some lecture hall, notebooks and coffee in hand. He wanted her to be that girl, studious, hardworking, the kind of woman who could make him feel like a mentor and a lover all at once. Every night, Marcus leaned on her words. He started staying up later, his work suffering the next morning because he couldn't put the phone down. When his co-workers asked why he looked so tired, he smirked and muttered, talking to someone special. He never mentioned her age. He never mentioned her name. She was his secret. But Marcus wasn't satisfied with small talk for long. At first, it was subtle. What are you doing right now, he'd ask. Emily would respond, just watching TV. With who, he'd press. By myself. Good, he'd reply. Emily giggled at first, mistaking his need to know everything as care. But soon, the questions became constant. If she didn't reply within minutes, he'd flood her inbox. Where did you go? Why aren't you answering me? Are you talking to someone else? At 18, Emily was inexperienced, still learning the boundaries of love. She mistook Marcus's control for passion. She told herself, he just cares about me. He doesn't want to lose me. She wanted to believe it. In reality, Marcus wasn't falling in love, he was tightening his grip. He needed to know she was his and only his. And the more she gave in, the more he demanded. But every time Marcus told her how beautiful she was, Emily felt the sting of her lie. He thought she was tall, thought her long hair fell past her shoulders onto a slender frame. In reality, she spent hours angling her photos, hiding the truth. She wanted to tell him. So many nights, her thumb hovered over the keyboard as she typed out confessions. I'm not like other girls. I'm different. I have something I need to tell you. But each time, fear stopped her. What if he left? What if he laughed at her? What if he told her she was disgusting, like others had before? She couldn't bear the thought of losing him. So, she lied again. Marcus fed off her attention. He told her about his life, though his stories were just as edited as hers. He never mentioned his drinking. He never mentioned the custody battles that left him estranged from his daughter. Instead, he painted himself as a strong, hard-working man who had built his own life with his bare hands. Someday, he told her, you'll see the house I'm working on. I want you there with me. Emily smiled at the message, her cheeks warming. No one had ever talked about a future with her before. In Marcus's words, she heard the echo of everything she craved: security, love, belonging. Marcus, however, wasn't daydreaming about romance. He was fantasizing about possession. He pictured Emily waiting at home for him, cooking for him, pleasing him. She wasn't a partner in his mind, she was a prize, a cure for his loneliness. But cracks began to show. One evening, Marcus video called Emily unexpectedly. Panic shot through her veins. She had always made excuses not to turn on the camera: bad lighting, tired face, broken phone. But this time, she couldn't avoid it. She picked up, holding the camera just inches from her face, her auburn hair framing her cheeks. She tilted it carefully, ensuring he saw nothing below her shoulders. You look even prettier, Liv, Marcus said with a grin. But why are you hiding the rest of you? Emily laughed nervously. I'm just in my pajamas. Not a good look. Marcus narrowed his eyes but didn't push further. He told himself she was shy. Still, a seed of suspicion was planted. As the weeks turned into months, Marcus's obsession deepened. He grew jealous of Emily's friends, demanding she spend less time with them. Why do you need them when you have me? He asked one night. Emily hesitated. They're just my friends. You know that. I don't like it, he snapped. I want all of you, Emily. You're mine. His words frightened her for a moment, but then he softened his tone. I just don't want to lose you. You mean everything to me. Her heart melted, and once again, she mistook possession for devotion. But Marcus's fixation on finally meeting her grew unbearable. He wanted proof, wanted reality, wanted to solidify the fantasy he had built in his head. He began pressing her every day. When are we meeting? Let's make it happen. I need to see you, Emily. I can't wait anymore. Emily stalled, terrified that the truth would destroy everything. But Marcus was relentless. Finally, with her heart pounding and palms sweating, Emily agreed. Yes. We can meet, she typed. Marcus's chest swelled with triumph. His fantasy was about to come true. Emily closed her eyes, whispering to herself, please let him still want me. Please let him see me for who I am. Neither of them knew the truth was not going to set them free. It was going to destroy them. The online world had given Marcus and Emily a fantasy, a fragile web of lies and illusions they both clung to. But fantasies don't last forever. And when fantasy collides with reality, the fallout can be catastrophic. The stage was set for their first meeting. What neither of them realized was that their carefully crafted illusions were the very things that would lead to a nightmare. The day of the meeting was one Marcus had circled in his mind for weeks. He had rehearsed what he would say, what he would wear, even how he would stand so he looked confident and strong. To him, this wasn't just another date, it was the moment his loneliness would end, the moment his online fantasy would step out of a screen and into his arms. Emily, meanwhile, was a trembling bundle of nerves. She had barely slept the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined Marcus's reaction when he saw her. Would he smile and hug her? Or would his face twist in disappointment, like so many others before? She had practiced how she would carry herself, how she'd tilt her chin high and smile as though nothing was wrong. But deep down, she knew, this was a gamble. Marcus stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of his shirt. He hadn't dressed up like this in years. A navy button-down, freshly ironed, tucked into clean jeans. He even spritzed on cologne he hadn't worn since his wedding anniversary over a decade ago. As he looked at his reflection, a smirk tugged at his lips. "She's going to lose her mind when she sees me," he muttered to himself. A real man. Not some boy. He pocketed his phone, checked his wallet twice, and left his apartment with a nervous energy buzzing in his chest. Emily sat in the back seat of a cab, staring out the window as the city blurred past. Her hands were clammy, and she rubbed them against her dress for comfort. She had chosen the dress carefully, a pale blue sundress that fell just past her knees. It was pretty, delicate, and, most importantly, it made her feel almost normal. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "I'm already here. Waiting outside." Her stomach dropped. It was too late to turn back. She typed quickly, "I'm almost there. Don't move." The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "You okay, miss?" Emily forced a smile. "Yeah. Just, nervous." Nervous didn't even begin to cover it. Marcus stood near the restaurant entrance, scanning the street. When the cab pulled up, his chest swelled. Finally. Finally, after all the weeks, all the waiting, here she was. The door opened, and Emily stepped out. Marcus's smile froze. She was small. Too small. Her head barely reached his chest. The auburn hair was real, the smile the same as in the photos, but her body, her frame, it was not what he expected. She wasn't the tall, curvy young woman he had imagined. She was a dwarf. The fantasy shattered in an instant. Emily's heart pounded as she saw his expression change. She forced a smile, lifting her chin with practiced courage. "Hi, Marcus." He stared at her, his jaw tight. For a long, suffocating moment, he said nothing. The silence was louder than any words. Emily's hands trembled, but she extended them anyway. "It's really nice to finally meet you." Marcus blinked, his voice clipped. You didn't tell me." Her throat tightened. "I wanted to. I was scared." His eyes burned into hers, full of disappointment and something darker, betrayal. He muttered, almost to himself, "You lied to me." They walked into the restaurant together, though it felt less like a date and more like a funeral procession. Marcus didn't offer his arm. He didn't smile. Emily felt every stare from strangers as she followed him to the table. The waiter greeted them warmly, but Marcus barely acknowledged him. He sat stiffly, arms crossed, eyes cold. Emily tried to break the ice. "So, how was your day?" He didn't look at her. "Fine." She swallowed hard. "The food smells really good here." He gave a short nod. For the next 30 minutes, Emily carried the conversation by herself. She asked about his work, about his favorite movies, about things they had talked about online. Each answer from Marcus was clipped, one word, two at most. Finally, Emily set her fork down, her voice trembling. "Marcus. I'm sorry. I know I should have told you the truth from the beginning. But I was scared you wouldn't even give me a chance." His eyes finally met hers, but they weren't soft. They were sharp, angry. "You think this is funny? You think you can trick me into this?" Emily's chest tightened. "No. I wanted you to know me first. Not my condition. Me." Marcus scoffed, his voice dripping with venom. "So you lied. You made me believe I was meeting someone else. Do you know how that feels?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into thin air. But she stayed, clinging to the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, he would calm down. After dinner, Marcus walked ahead, his strides quick, his shoulders tense. Emily struggled to keep up, her shorter legs moving quickly. "Marcus, please," she whispered. "Don't be mad. I care about you. I wasn't trying to hurt you." He didn't answer. His silence was worse than yelling. They reached the hotel he had booked. Emily hesitated at the entrance, her heart screaming at her to turn back. But she followed him inside. She told herself, if I can just make him see who I am, maybe he'll forgive me. Maybe he'll still want me. Marcus, however, wasn't thinking about forgiveness. His mind swirled with humiliation, with anger, with the crushing weight of a fantasy destroyed. In his eyes, Emily wasn't the girl he loved anymore. She was a liar. That first meeting should have been the beginning of a love story, the kind of moment two people remember fondly for the rest of their lives. But instead, it became the moment Marcus's disappointment began festering into something far darker. Emily still held on to hope. Marcus held on to rage. And together, they were walking into tragedy. In the hotel, Emily tried to close the distance. But Marcus snapped. His words were venomous. "You tricked me. You think this is funny? You made me look like a fool." Emily's tears fell as she tried to explain. But Marcus wasn't listening. Inside that hotel room, anger turned into violence. Marcus's hands wrapped around Emily's throat. She struggled, kicking, clawing, gasping for air. In her last moments, she whispered his name, pleading for him to stop. But Marcus tightened his grip until silence filled the room. When he let go, Emily's lifeless body lay sprawled across the bed. A young girl whose only crime was wanting love, was gone. Marcus sat in silence, staring at her body. The reality of what he had done began to sink in. He paced the room, muttering to himself. For hours, he debated what to do. Call for help. Run. Hide the body. Finally, he dragged Emily's body into the bathroom, covering her with towels as if that would erase the crime. But guilt gnawed at him. His phone buzzed, Emily's mother calling. He couldn't answer. He smashed the phone against the wall. Emily's disappearance didn't go unnoticed. She had told her best friend, Rachel, about the date. When Emily didn't return home, Rachel alerted her family. The police traced her steps to Marcus's hotel. When the door opened, Marcus looked calm, almost resigned. Behind him, Emily's lifeless form was found. He didn't resist. He simply muttered. "She lied to me. She made me believe." In court, Marcus's defense was weak. His lawyers argued emotional distress, claiming he was provoked by deception. But the prosecution painted him as a predator, a man who sought out vulnerable young women and lashed out when reality didn't match his fantasy. Emily's family sat through every detail, their faces etched with grief. Rachel testified, revealing Emily's insecurities and her fear of rejection. The jury wept as Emily's mother described her daughter's laughter, dreams, and innocence. Marcus showed no remorse. He claimed he was the victim of lies. But the jury saw through him. The verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom fell silent as Marcus was led away. Emily's family clutched each other, broken but relieved. This wasn't just a story about a crime. It was a story about the dangers of deception, the fragility of human pride, and the devastating consequences of obsession. Emily never meant to harm anyone, she just wanted love. But her lie collided with Marcus's darkness, and the result was irreversible. Emily Carter's life ended before it truly began. She was just 18, with dreams of being loved for who she was. Marcus Holloway's selfish rage stole that from her. This story reminds us, love cannot survive without truth. Lies may seem small, even protective, but when mixed with fragile egos and unchecked emotions, they can ignite into tragedy. Do you think Marcus's crime was purely out of rage, or was it a reflection of something far darker he had always carried inside him? If this story moved you, share your thoughts below, subscribe for more deep crime stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next case we uncover.